Welcome to the People's National Congress Reform Press Conference for Wednesday, September 25th, 2024. Joining today's presser is Mr. Aubrey C. Norton, Member of Parliament, Leader of the People's National Congress Reform and the Parliamentary Opposition. Also joining is Mr. Elson Lowe, Treasurer of the People's National Congress Reform and Economist. Today's press statement will be read by the Leader of the People's National Congress Reform.
PNCR APNU policies, strategies, and principles for the development of the oil and gas sector. Below, we outline the comprehensive set of policies, strategies, and principles that will guide our management of the oil and gas sector as the next government of Guyana. 1. Within 90 days of taking office, the administration will constitute a distinguished advisory team of professionals with specialities including business, contracts, law, economics, auditing, engineering, geology, and renewable energy to advise the government on the upstream, midstream, and downstream planning, development, and administration of Guyana's oil and gas sector. 2. We will review the existing drafts of the Petroleum Commission legislation and restructure as is necessary to finalize the establishment of an exploration, production, sales, refining, and gas utilization for energy conversion. 3. To eradicate corruption and unethical conduct by government and contractor officials. We will institute an independent Inspector General's office with a 24/7 anonymous hotline to involve the public in reporting any knowledge or appearance of corruption. The Inspector General's office will be adequately resourced and vested with the authority to conduct independent investigations and, where necessary, recommend prosecutions. 4. We will immediately reinstate the coalition government's requirement for full liability coverage. This includes the appropriate insurance, as well as parent company guarantee to cover the full cost of an oil spill, prohibition of gas flaring except in special cases of startup, emergency and maintenance in compliance with environmental impact assessment, reinjection of the very hot toxic and oil-laced water in accordance with international standards and the World Bank. We will implement the World Bank's plan for an oil and gas unit at the EPA comprising skilled and experienced oil and gas professionals to provide adequate oversight. 5. Will inculcate the safety and environmental protection culture, that safety and stewardship of the environment take paramountcy over production and profits, and there must be accountability for any violation of this rule. 6. We will complete an in-depth analysis of projected estimates of the annual oil and gas production profile through the life of the fields, and 2, corresponding estimates of projected government revenues, which will inform the government's annual budgetary allocations and out-year strategic planning. There will also be a regular review of the movement of oil prices in the short, medium, and long term. 7, to ensure economic sustainability during and after the oil and gas era. We will make the building of capacity in the education sector our highest priority in the investment of oil and gas revenues, including the equitable distribution of wealth to local areas of the regions in the form of capacity building, projects, and job creation to avoid the oil curse syndrome. 8, we will conduct a national skills audit for all sectors of the economy, including oil and gas. This will identify the needed categories competencies, and skills, along with the strategies for the training and development that will include on the job, off the job, and classroom training provided by international contractors. We will establish a consortium comprising the University of Guyana, the government technical institutes, and other training institutions to also facilitate the training needs identified in the skills gap analysis. 9, we will develop a directory of registered diaspora oil and gas professionals and businesses. The aim is to ensure an active and organized utilization of their skills through partnering and advising with provisions for preferential consideration in the procurement process. Then, considering the vastly changed conditions since the signing of the 2016 Stabroek Block Production Sharing Agreement, and consistent with Article 32.1 of the PSA, we will complete a top-to-bottom review of the PSA and then engage the Stabroek Block partners to maximize the benefits of all the resources to the people of Guyana while ensuring a fair share of profit for Stabroek Block partners. The review will include but not be limited to ring fencing of projects, oil tax regime, environmental responsibilities, decommissioning, transparency, the timely reporting of information, regulatory oversight, and real-time monitoring, auditing, local content, shared management, and decision-making in operations in the oil and gas sector. 11, we will conduct feasibility studies to determine the viability of creating a national oil company and or a local refinery. 12, we will complete the cradle to grave management plan commenced by the coalition for the management of the millions of tons of hazardous and non-hazardous wastes generated by the oil and gas industry and the rest of the country to ensure that treatment, storage, and disposal of these wastes are done in accordance with safe and environmentally sound international standards and practices. This will include completion of site evaluations and selections and designs of state-of-the-art landfills to guarantee adequate treatment, storage, and disposal currently unavailable in Guyana. 13, we will undertake a complete review of the Stabroek Block PSA, and we will also complete a similar review of the contractual regime of the other blocks. 14, taking into account that the existing 1996 Environmental Protection Agency Act was legislated 19 years before oil and gas discovery, and hence did not consider specific oil and gas regulations and other unforeseen industrial activities, we will complete a holistic review of the EPA Act with recommended amendments for the legislative approval to ensure safe and environmentally sound oversight to comport with Guyana's new and foreseeable development. 15, for full transparency, we will institute a publication of information protocol, ensuring that all information, including but not limited to contracts, agreements, contractors' quarterly reports, new discoveries, updated reserves, and production data be made available and accessible to the public conveniently and timely. 16, we will complete a feasibility study to evaluate the most economical and environmentally viable options for utilizing the produced gas as an energy resource for Guyana, including the use of ISO containers for the transportation of natural gas to shore. 17, we will conduct a review of the Natural Resource Fund and restructure it as is necessary to ensure its independence, prudent management, and the fulfillment of its mandate. 18, in order to stimulate the local economy and gain skills and international competitiveness in the supply of goods and services, we will institute a local content policy that ensures equitable participation of local businesses by requiring the contractor to maximize expenditures on local goods and services. 19. We will govern and manage the oil and gas sector in the best interests of the people of Ghana and in accordance with the rule of law. And 20, we will utilize the resources of the oil and gas sector to craft a foreign policy which will facilitate the integration of the oil and gas sector into a strong national economy that can help to protect the territorial integrity and sovereignty of our nation. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we will take questions on the press statement, and I'm asking that we note today that we will be sticking with the press statements. This press statement, sorry. Questions? Miss Rennie? We are not hearing you, Miss Rennie. I think she may be having a bit of difficulty with her audio.
I'll check for any other person.
Any other questions? While we check and see what's happening. Miss Garnett? Miss Garnett, Miss Renee will type her question in the meantime. She's indicating to me, so you can go ahead. Let me see if I'll hear.
Hi, good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
afternoon, everyone. What can I see this time, Mr. Hamad, repeat what the headline for the list that he just read out is? Because I came in, the recording started to me at number 3, I think.
Okay, the headline
I know the second today.
The headline is PNCA PNU's policies, strategies, and principles for the development of the oil and gas sector. Put simply, it is our basic policy paper on how we intend to manage the oil and gas sector.
Okay, I have 2 questions.
Go ahead.
The first one is, I noticed some of the things that Mr. Norton said somewhat contradicted the actions of what took place under the acting AFC government when they were in government. Such as you mentioned the revealing of contract and information, making it public, but we had that when AFC was in government, we had to fight to get the PSA revealed. There was a lot of criticism and pressing for the party to reveal that contract. So, and then there was secrecy of the $80 million signing bonus. How does Mr. Norton plan to now reassure persons going ahead, given that some of this that he has mentioned contradicts some of what was done under the acting party previously? My next question is, a lot of these plans are very broad-based. They don't have specifics. And a few weeks ago, I was asked Mr. Norton a question about when he had mentioned about the teacher salaries, where he had mentioned that he would give 35%. And he said something that really stuck with me, that when you are in the opposition, it's easy to say something, and then when you get in, the reality is harder to come to grips with. So accomplish some of the things you would have set out because the reality may not be aligned with what you planned. To what extent can Mr. Norton assure that these things being said now that when the party gets in, that they will have the ability to still implement them and stick to them, even when they come up against realizing that the landscape here may not, I don't know to what extent you guys have assessed these specific statute, the policies that you put forth here. And I'm sorry to be a little bit long-winded, but to what extent can persons be reassured that this can actually go forward, given that sometimes even when parties get in, the reality is different from what the party may have expected when they were on the outside looking in.
Let me start with your last comment. I think you're not being contextual. When I was speaking, I was talking on an issue in which I said I didn't want to pronounce because when you get there, we didn't have the information at our disposal. And therefore, it wasn't wise to pronounce because you might get there and find out that there is a different situation. That still holds. Now, the contradiction. It is a fact that the first time anyone saw the contract was while the APNU, AFC, was in government and put it in the public domain. So I don't know what contradiction exists when in fact the PPP had it for years. It was never made public, and it was first made public under the APNU. Additionally, we ensured that the opposition was engaged to have data, etc., which this government is not prepared to do. So as it relates to the sign-in bonus, as far as I know, the sign-in bonus is not what is claimed by the PPP in government. It was taken to ensure that we can pursue the matter of our territorial integrity at the level of the International Court of Justice. And when that matter came, the money was there. The PPP's attempt to suggest that something illegal is a reflection of their culture. They believe everything that happens is underpinned by illegality. If there was illegality, why when they came to power they didn't take action? And may I ask this question, is it not true that the money placed there obtained interest that has been spent by the PPP? So I would say to you, one, the sign-in bonus was taken and it went to what it was intended for. That in itself should reassure people that we are people to our word. Like I said, there is no contradictions. You said there are no details. And my understanding of policies is that they are broad guidelines for action. After you would have developed your policies, your programs, and your projects, you then go to the policy and develop specific programs that you will implement to achieve your objective. So one does not expect in a policy document, a plan, details. You are providing general policies that the people who you govern will understand the direction you're carrying the country or the industry. And so I do not believe that there is need for even the suggestion that there'd be details when we state at the top policies, strategies, and principles. Now, as it relates to the comment on teacher salary, I think in that presentation, we did more than once. In one press conference, I showed where you can take the money from. I pointed out that we can cut waste, we can cut corruption. Teachers can be assured of that because the money is there to do it, and we will not waste money in the way the People's Progressive Party is wasting money. And the money that is going to be saved from corruption and wastage by itself, by themselves, can pay them. But additionally, outside of that, there are resources in the national treasury that can pay the teachers. So I would say people can be reassured of our position. And like I said previously, there will always be times when you arrive at a desk, there might be changes. the policy is structured in such a way that you can achieve your objectives, even though there might be slight changes when you arrive in government.
Thank you. I will read the question from Ms. Renee Kaitronos, and then I'll take the question from Mr. Mark Benchcott. Ms. Renee asked, Mr. Norton spoke about the conducting a comprehensive review of the Stavro Block production sharing agreement, and he outlined several areas of focus. However, what I would like to clarify is whether the party is considering imposing taxes on Exxon and its partners. The reason I ask is that the last year, Guyana earned 336 billion from oil and gas, yet the country had to cover approximately 306 billion in taxes on behalf of Exxon and its partners. Would revisiting this provision, which currently grants the companies a tax-free arrangement while placing the tax burden on Guyana, be part of the review?
Every aspect will be involved in the review. So we will seek to review the entire PSA with the aim of ensuring the Guyanese people benefit.
Thank you. Mr. Mark Benchcott.
Thank you. It's interesting that I'm hearing questions attempting to hold the opposition accountable for not even being in office yet in promises. But with some of these messages or questions can be asked of Jack Yale, with lots of promises that they've made, and they have not fulfilled those promises as yet. Broken promises. Now let me get to my question as it pertains to the 200 unaccounted for that was audited, supposedly audited, and is still unaccounted for. What is the opposition doing with regards to holding this regime accountable as it pertains to that? The other question. Sorry, go ahead, sir.
We have been consistently keeping this matter in the public domain. You are well aware that we were the initiators of the first audit. And when we did it, because we believed in auditing, we believed there was a need for audit so that we can get what we are entitled to. Unfortunately, this government has no interest in that. And what we are doing is exposing them. But in the final analysis, it is the government that will have to take the action to ensure that we get the money we're entitled to.
Mark, one of the things you would point out is that in the very first point of this statement, we talk about putting together a team of experts, which includes experts in auditing, because we need to ensure that we have the right advice that actually get these funds where they're due to Guyana, and where an audit shows that those funds can be or should be recovered. So what we're saying is we're going to ensure that we have that expertise, that we are prepared to deal with that issue, rather than hiding the issue or not even really giving the nation proper updates as to the nature of the issue. We will tackle it head on by ensuring that we have the expertise to deal with the issue.
Thank you. Two other questions. One, as it pertains to the awarding of oil blocks to friends and cronies of the PPP regime. I'm wondering whether the opposition is keeping a tab on those, the awards of those blocks, and whether they're done in a transparent manner. The other thing that came to mind, and I noticed that Bharat Jagdeo talks about it often because it's probably touching him, is when he made a promise to work out a deal with Venezuela to share the some sort of economic zone with Venezuela. Were the opposition to get in office next elections, hopefully, will an investigation be launched in regard to what Jagdeo meant to give away a piece of Guyana to Venezuela?
I'm not sure that we would want to waste time with investigating a statement made by Jagdeo. I don't know what benefits can be derived from it. What we will do is ensure we have a clear foreign policy position so that all our actors are guided by that foreign policy position. and we do everything within our powers to ensure that we protect our sovereignty and our territorial integrity. For me, that has to be the focus. Um, Jagdeo just can't help himself, and I don't know there is any advantage to be had by going after him after for a statement. I mean, if it was an action that jeopardized Guyana, but it's a statement. Of course, the statement has negative consequences, but I don't know what can be done in terms of making him account for it. And most likely it would be done while he was president and with some amount of immunity. So I would not get involved in trying to hype up people that you can go after Jack Deo and this and that issue.
He asked about the
Um,
award of the block.
Sorry, the first
You can tap.
quarter, the first half of this year,
Mhm.
Guyana received close to 50 million US dollars per month in oil revenue. What are you guys doing to ensure that Jagdeo and the PDP are not putting that money to personal usage or giving it to friends and cronies to buy votes
We
in
are
the
all,
next election?
we are satisfied that they are doing that. And like I said, we have to expose it. But in a government structure, one of the things they are doing is hiding so that the accounts aren't audited and come before the Public Accounts Committee before the next election. And so one will have to do the forensic audits and then take action based on that information. But as it stands, while it is obvious that there is extreme corruption coupled with incompetence, I do not know that at this stage um, you can or we can handle it. We have to ensure an audit is done and then take action. And I always point out there is a problem in Guyana as far as I'm concerned, and that problem is the extent to which you can hold ministers accountable. I'm a little hopeful because a judge recently ruled that they can be held accountable, but we're operating under a system we inherited in which public officer was defined as public servant and ministers, vice presidents, etc., were not involved there. You would recall the attempt to bring Ashni Singh, Anil Nandalal, and the president himself to justice, ended up in long battles as to what constitutes a public official. And so one has to be very careful that we don't go. One of the things I think happened the last time is that there was a lot of talk about bringing people to justice, etc., without paying attention to the system that exists. And then when you got into power and the legal system was used to delay and push back everything, it appeared as if you weren't doing anything. But we have to remember, Guyana does not have a legalistic system to deal with corruption and malpractices in government. And that will have to be rectified if one is to achieve your objective. And even if you rectify it, I do not know that it can be made retroactive. So we have to face the reality that exists.
What I would also say, Mark, is one of the things that we really want to highlight at some of the points we've raised here is that we believe that we must strengthen our institutions and build out institutions. When it comes to you talked about the allocation of oil blocks, we speak about the auction of oil blocks being guarded, being carried out by a petroleum commission. What you've seen in the past on the PUP is that they engage in one-on-one negotiations and you don't see auctions. They've only recently started to see auctions. So we believe that by having a petroleum commission there, we'll be able to have an institution to properly manage these sorts of arrangements. Additionally, we pointed out that we're going to institute an Inspector General's office, which will again provide another layer of defense against corruption. And that is really vital in order to ensure that this industry, which across the world has often been plagued by corruption, has some, again, further safeguards. So we recognize, as the leader is mentioning, some institutional and legal limitations, and through building our institutions and strengthening the framework of governance in this country, we believe that we'll be able to move things forward. We even want to point out that, and I think it's our second to last point here, or third to last, we mentioned that we believe that the rule of law is vital. And so this is a totally different approach than we were just off their whims and fancies as things are done. We believe in putting in place those institutions. We believe in dealing with things in a structured way and ensuring that the rule of law is followed.
And I mentioned before at one of the press conferences, the PPP is intent on being corrupt. And one of the reasons that is obvious is that when Minister Ashley Singh was charged, I think they became worried that he could have gone to jail. Now, what they have done is to not make him the minister in the true sense of the word, but give him responsibility to finance. So the minister is really Irfan Ali, who will enjoy some amount of immunity. And the corruption is so obvious. I mentioned the Geology and Mines Commission building in my last press conference, in which you took $2 billion. This building was already up. You had to now modify and complete. And you took $2 billion. And we called for a forensic audit of it. They're not likely to do it, but it is an issue we'll keep on the front burner because it is waste of the Guyanese money. And a lot of this money is going into the pockets of the PPP elites, their friends, their families, and their favorites.
Questions? Ms. Garnett, is your hand up again? All right. Any other question? Mr. Benchcock?
Yeah, sorry. Is it just restricted to? All right, I'll stand up. Go ahead. Sorry.
Ms. Garnett? We are not hearing you. You're having, it's very broken.
What's that?
Yeah, we're waiting.
I didn't hear what you said.
Yes, you can go ahead. We're hearing you better now.
Oh, you guys can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I have a question pertaining to the question that Mr. Benchcock asked. I know you guys said you weren't taking questions out of the press statement, but it's pertaining to the Venezuela situation and the giveaway of the narrative that there was some giveaway of the maritime zone. And Mr. Jagdi was saying that that conversation actually, and Venezuela, there are reports saying that Venezuela is saying that that conversation started since the time of former President Bob Sperna, and they're claiming even in October 1990, under the presidency of Desmond Hoy, there were talks of the situation with the maritime zone, and there was a consideration that Guyana could consider the placement of the maritime zone and giving away a corridor towards the Atlantic. Can Mr. Norton clarify his knowledge of this situation? Because Mr. Jalio continues to maintain that the conversation did not start with him and predated his presidency. Is it prudent for us, particularly given the tension that's going on with the border controversy, to continue the narrative that it started with former President Barry Jagdeo? And can Mr. Norton say what is his knowledge about, was there some negotiation or considerations under the former Fox Burnham and then Desmond Hoy about the maritime zone that's being spoken of right now?
Based on my knowledge, at no stage did we consider giving part of the maritime zone. I thought our position has always been the 1899 arbitral award that settled it, and that we wanted a solution to that I don't know of any time under Desmond Hoyt or Forbes Burnham that they ventured. So what is Barrett Jack? He's a pathological liar. I will not worry with anything that Barrett Jack says. He has no credibility. But I can say to you that from my knowledge, nothing like that happened. And let's assume you didn't have a situation in which the foreign ministry in those days operated whimsically. Virtually everything was documented. And if there was documented evidence of that, you know Barra Jackdale, he would have provided it. But I think, listen, we have to focus on ensuring that we succeed at the International Court of Justice and ensure that we maintain our territorial integrity and sovereignty. I will not worry with anything that is said by Venezuela or by Barra Jackdale, because it will be an attempt to cover up the mistakes. I recall while I was in opposition and I was Shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs, I don't remember the year, the PPP was talking about joint exploration of the area. And I remember we objected because we believed that that was letting Venezuela in, giving them a toenail. And we objected. So I do not see how, with Burnham's intellect and approach, with Hoyt's intellect and approach, they would have become engaged in something like that. I think Barrett is just covering his incompetence, his ability to be transactional.
Mr. Mark Benchcott?
Can I have a follow-up, please? Two things. One, I know that the Venezuela submitted something to the ICJ saying that they had interactions with former President Desmond Hoyt. But outside of that, do you think it's prudent in this time of the border controversy? So even be pushing the narrative that anyone in Guyana had tried to give away a part of the Atlantic, given what the tensions that we have with Venezuela, and that we should be providing a united front to combat everything that's coming from Venezuela and their claims?
We have provided a united front. It is Barra Jackdo that raised the issue that you're talking about, not us. We sought from the inception to provide a united front. When I spoke first with President Finale, I said to him there's a need for a united front. And I guarantee him that he will get the support of the opposition in the Guyana-Venezuela territorial controversy. What you need to do is to curtail Barra Jackdo's whimsical approach and see what you can do to his mouth to make him not create problems for us. But at no stage did we promote anything of that sort. But if the question is asked, we have to respond, which I did.
I would also say that it seems strange to be kind of making the argument that no matter what the PPP does, even if it is potentially treacherous to the country, we must present a united front. If the PPP makes statements that threaten the future of Guyana, we would, of course, represent the Guyanese people and the rights of the Guyanese people. So just because we're looking to work together on this issue doesn't mean the PPP has a free pass to do whatever it is they feel like doing when it comes to such a serious issue.
Thank you. Mr. Mark Benchcott?
Forgive me if I'm
What-
wrong, but what isn't it the AFC can't use that resurrected the issue?
Well, you have to ask Cathy Hughes in the AFC that. You can't ask us that.
Madam Moderator.
Yes,
can
Mr.
I be
Branchcock.
allowed to ask questions, or people will just?
You can go ahead, Mr. Benchcott.
And so I understand how hurtful it is about that treasonous statement about giving away a piece of the economic zone to Venezuela. I understand how they feel. Very good. Having said that, though, I'd like to know what's the position with regards to another selling out of the Guyanese people by siding with siding or went up against our court ruling that Exxon should pay more as it pertains to if there is any sort of oil spill in Guyana. I don't know where that court matter is at this point in time. The other thing, am I allowed a question outside of what was read from your statement, sir?
Not really. Friday's press conference, they will deal with all the other issues. This one is specifically, in fact, we've already allowed you some latitude outside of the press statement, but this one is aimed surely at dealing with the oil and gas policy.
With the oil, well, this is an oil and gas question, as it pertains to allegations that the regime is using the oil and gas resources to buy votes in the United States of America. They held meetings in Brooklyn and Queens, and it is reported that they are giving away folks thousands of US dollars, which is very concerning at this point in time. Your take, sir.
We are convinced that the PPP is a maverick party and that they have no interest in the rule of law, and it's not restricted to the areas you call. They went to the Brazil and did the same thing at the borders with Brazil. My understanding is that they're doing the same thing with Suriname. We have to be vigilant and be prepared to deal with it. You would know from the local government elections, which is not as important an election as the general and regional elections, and they were prepared to bribe people. They were prepared to do false signatures to the point where Barra Jagdeo had to apologize. So we won't put anything past them. We just have to be prepared to deal with it. That's the nature of the People's Progressive Party.
Mark, on your question regarding the PPP's willingness to side against the Guyanese people to avoid there being a parent company guarantee, as we said in our statement, we will immediately reinstate our policies that there should be a parent company guarantee to ensure that we see the kind of coverage that Guyana requires, given the severity of the risk if there is an oil spill, the financial severity of that. So that just once again underlines our commitment to ensuring that we have a safe operating climate and that the people of Guyana, their interests are protected. And really what it also does is highlight the gulf between the position that we have taken and the position the PPP has taken, where they are willing to go to court, willing to actually go to court, actually join that case, so reduce the protection that Guyana receives. They didn't think that a neutral position was enough of a position. They had to go out of their way to do that. And so that really, I think, highlights there is a chasm between our positions when it comes to protecting Guyana and protecting the environment and ensuring that we are safeguarded in the event of an oil spill. And we'll continue to highlight the importance of this issue and continue to highlight the approach that we believe we need to take to the environment. We even went further in this statement by indicating that we want to promote generally an approach and an understanding in this country of the way to deal with the environment, which is that we should protect it and live in harmony with it.
Thank you. I have time for probably one or other question. Any other questions on the first statement? Okay, with there being no other questions, I want to thank our media personnel for joining today's press up, and of course our viewing audience on all our social media platforms. Thank you for joining and to have a wonderful day.